9:35, I'll call the meeting to order. And I'll just remind everyone, this is a special meeting of the North Dakota Ethics Commission, and discussion is limited to the topics on the agenda. So the first item on the agenda is discussion of advisory opinion, request number 24-02. Rebecca or Logan, is that one of you guys?
It's Logan.
Okay.
I'll just run through the draft opinion and ask if you have questions. Feel free to jump in, or if there's typos or anything, please point them out to us. But advisory opinion request 2402, this was a request for a lobbyist, Mr. Sean McKenna, the executive director of the North Dakota Association of Nonprofit Organization. He asked a question about an event that I'm going to refer to it as the NDANO, puts on as an annual conference. At the annual conference, they have a meal and present awards. And one of these awards is presented to a legislator for the legislator's contributions to the organization. So he asked about, would it be okay for the NDANO to cover the legislator's meal costs to attend? And then would it also be okay there change the award from a paper frame certificate to an acrylic plaque in recent years for all award recipients? So we also asked if it would be okay to also give that legislator the same award that's given to other award recipients in the form of an acrylic plaque. So the advisory opinion walks through the gift prohibition in Article 14, the civil penalty that is in the Century Code that the legislature created in 2019, that the penalty can be up to 2 times the value of a gift if there is a gift violation. Then it walks through the ethics rules, who is a lobbyist, what is a prohibited gift, but also the exceptions that the Ethics Commission is empowered to create under Article 14. And then we get into the analysis of the events that the Commission is well aware of the private and social educational events, or the public, social, and educational events, and what those are. And then on page 5 is where we get into the analysis of the questions that Mr. McKenna had. So there's really 2 key questions, I guess. Well, there's an overarching question about whether it's a private or public social and educational event. The opinion says that it needs to meet those criteria for some of the exceptions to apply. So once those criteria are met, the opinion narrows in on 1 or 2 of the exceptions. I guess we have the meal exception. That's a pretty clear-cut exception, that when you have an educational event and there's a meal, food and beverage for immediate consumption, that's in the Commission's rules. That's the one that we deal with most often. So that one is in A on page 6. That's pretty short analysis there. But yes, that's okay if it's for a legislator and it's at one of these noticed events. It's permissible to cover the legislator's meal expenses. But then getting into the next, I think the bigger question, the awarding of an acrylic plaque. So the opinion analyzes the Commission's exception for gifts or other things of value shared as a cultural or social norm as part of a public or private social and educational event. So again, the opinion says it has to be at one of those private or public social and educational events. But then on the last page, analyzes whether it fits the cultural norm or the social norm. So there's an explanation there of what the criteria really is for a cultural norm, and that's that it must reflect the traditions, heritage, values, and beliefs of a group of people. And then it gives some examples, star quilts from members of tribal nations, or gifts between political dignitaries. So an acrylic plaque really doesn't fall into that exception, but then it turns to the analysis of a social norm that's also included as part of that exception, and concludes that yes, something like a personalized plaque or certificate with the recipient's name, that's something that's socially given quite often. But if you are giving something under that exception, it shouldn't derive independent resale value. And then goes on to describe that there might be a monetary cost associated with giving it, but it should have more sentimental value to the recipient rather than intrinsic value. And then it says a personalized acrylic plaque would fit that exception. And then the opinion gives a few examples that wouldn't fit that exception. I guess the common one that the commission talks about quite often is like a bottle of wine. I think we used a rifle and then tickets to a sporting event or other things that would fit in that category where if you receive them, you could turn around and sell it and get some value out of it. That's not really, I guess, the purpose of the exception to the rule or to the prohibition in Article 14. So that is the conclusion there in the opinion that yes, you can cover the meal costs at these private social and educational events or public social and educational events, and acrylic plaque is fine as long as it does not derive independent resale value. Any questions?
Okay, thanks, Logan.
Pretty
Well written, thorough, that's for sure. So, but I like how it was divided up so I could see the analysis, which part of the analysis you were working on. So, any questions from the commissioners?
Dave, this is Murray. I have a potential conflict. I have been on the board of directors of Nadano, and I am a member, just kind of a corporate member from for the past years, and occasionally I provide free legal advice to Nadano, but I was not consulted about this, nor have I been involved with this request in any manner. So I suppose the best thing to do would be to recuse myself or abstain from any voting on this. We'll take your guidance.
Okay, Maria, I think that's reasonable. So, Rebecca, your thoughts?
So if we walk through the conflict of interest rules that apply to the commission, Murray has the option to recuse or hand it over to the rest of the commission. So Dave, it's up to you if you want to let him sorry. If you want to let him recuse, then we're fine, and we'll fill out the conflict form afterwards, Murray, and have you sign it. Or if you want to kick it over to the rest of the commission, you can do that too. But that lies with Murray.
I'll just recuse myself from this.
Okay.
Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to approve. Any further discussion on this, on what Logan's done on this advisory opinion? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the draft language and issue advisory opinion 24-02 to the requester and for publication on the commission's website. Also move. Okay, Ward moved, and Ron, you second?
I'll second, yes.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, we have a motion. Alicia, call the roll, please.
Dave Anderson.
Aye.
Ron Goodman.
Aye.
Cynthia Lindquist.
Aye.
Ward Tozer.
Aye. Okay, motion carried. That advisory opinion is approved. Next item is discussion of advisory opinion request number 24-03. Logan, take it away.
I'll walk through this one just like I did the last one, Dave. So this request came in from a legislator, Representative Dawson Hawley. He posed a hypothetical question to the commission about potentially in the future if somebody reached out to him, he specifically used Wrangler, would a brand partnership where the hypothetical facts are you would receive a pair of jeans from Wrangler and do a social media campaign with them, would that constitute a political gain under North Dakota law? So that's really the essence of the hypothetical situation. Representative Hawley's a legislator. If he was approached to do this social media campaign, would it, I guess we interpret it, would it raise any ethical issues? Because the phrase political gain is not really used anywhere in North Dakota law. So we went and analyzed it from the position of the gifting provisions, campaign contributions, and then conflicts of interest and use of office for private gain. So the first few pages of the opinion just walk through what the law in those areas are. We again go through the gifting prohibition in Article 14, Century Code provisions that provide the penalty for it, 2 times the value of a prohibited gift, and then the ethics rules with the exceptions. Specifically pointing out exception number 2, any item given where the public official is paying fair market value for the item. But then we move into, there's law and campaign contributions. We just wanted to point it out because the hypothetical facts didn't necessarily say whether it was going to be associated with the campaign. So we just wanted to make sure that the advisory opinion noticed that that exists, that if it's in the context of a campaign, they might apply, but also, again, there's exceptions about fair market value there too. So the opinion really just points those out. Then we move into use of office for private gain and conflicts of interest. So there's nothing in statute or the commission's rules that we could find that's directly on point for that. Other states do have rules in that area. So we pointed out what some of those states, I guess the federal level has rules like that, but we also reference Oklahoma and West Virginia as 2 other examples, and then noted currently there is no ethics rule or statute that prohibits use of office for private gain. There are related statutes related to bribery and use of government property for political purposes, but nothing that direct. So then we looked at the legislative rules though too, because their rules take some more things into account, and they do have a rule that tells legislators to recognize not to use your position to obtain financial gain for yourself, your family, or your business. So we just noted that as well to be aware of in the advisory opinion. And then we go through the conflict rules, what those require, the steps in the process, just so there's background for the analysis. Getting into the analysis, we started with the gift analysis. So analyzing the exception of paying fair market value for the item. If you're rendering a service, you're doing work for it, so you're paying the value of it through that work. So when you meet that exception, it's excluded from any lobbyist gifting prohibition. So we didn't really do the lobbying analysis, because as long as you're paying, like a meal at an event, if you're paying for it, you really don't even have to do that analysis because you're not accepting a gift. Done the work, or you've paid the amount that it costs to receive the item, so you're not accepting a gift. So the lobbying analysis doesn't really apply. So that's the conclusion for the gift piece. You'll note there's a footnote there on page 8. The other rules to be aware of in the legislature that they don't allow wearing jeans on the floor. We thought that was something to point out, just given the hypothetical fact pattern that was proposed. And then keep in mind that the work that you provide or how much you pay, you can't underpay or underprovide work. If any piece of it would be a gift, then the gift analysis kicks in. So you have to make sure that you're paying the amount to acquire the item, I guess, essentially. Then moving into the campaign contribution analysis, the facts didn't indicate that. We just noted that if the facts change, that they may become a consideration. So just keeping that in mind, it's in the context of a campaign that any company is reaching out for a promotional campaign in different contexts. So no big analysis there, just to keep it in mind. And then under C again, use of office for private gain and conflicts of interest. Legislators should keep in mind their own rules, and then just pointing them back to that rule as something to consider, Joint Rule 1002. And then if you do have a business relationship with any of these entities that may present a conflict scenario in the future, that's hard to analyze without a fact pattern that's like, yes, there's a bill that directs or impacts Wrangler directly, but just, again, keep this in mind. If it ever presents itself, there's some legislation that would impact Wrangler particularly, you may have to do the conflict of interest analysis on a case-by-case basis. So the big conclusions there are on page 9 and on to page 10, that a brand partnership is not a prohibited gift as long as you're paying the value either through work or money, essentially. Public officials need to recognize that there's other laws that may apply, campaign finance laws, conflict of interest laws. And then 3, legislators should look back to their own rules, including 1002, when making these considerations, if this is the type of work that they'd like to engage in. That might be confusing. I also went through this one fast, so if there's questions, again, happy to answer them.
Any questions from the commission?
I am a little confused. The Wrangler supposedly gives the legislator a pair of jeans, but the legislator does pay for them or does not?
So the way it was proposed to us, Ron, is the payment would be the work the legislator does to promote them. So they use their personal social media to say, like, yes, these are great jeans. My followers should go out and buy them. It's a pretty typical thing if you use social media, where these people who are called influencers will sign a contract with a brand to promote their product, and they'll market it, and that's the payment for the product they're marketing on social media. So they wouldn't pay the money amount, it would be their work promoting it.
Okay. I guess I'm uncomfortable with any legislator promoting a product in this way. It seems to me it's like the legislators on the floor wearing a hat that says, you know, I'm wearing these really comfortable jeans. It seems to me is it that obvious that they would promote in that way? I don't know, maybe somebody else can comment.
Ron, I think that's a potential, but I guess the way it was proposed to us is that currently prohibited. And that's why we looked at what other states do. Other states have prohibitions. North Dakota currently doesn't, from what we found. Maybe that's something the commission wants to consider in the future as a rule, but we currently don't have one.
But the way we look at this, though, is the legislator is an influencer. So like it's like a line of work. It's something they do as a line of work. So it's all part of their it's not part of their legislative process. It's just a line of work like they do, like someone has a side business. That's why I looked at it. Is that correct, Logan?
Yes, yes, that's correct, Dave. There is some overlap there though, because if you're a public official,
Right.
you'll gain some public recognition by your status as a public official. Now, the question is then, well, is that prohibited to use that recognition to go out and sign brand deals and make a business off of people knowing who you are now? That's a trickier question to answer than.
Yeah.
And under the current law,
Under the current law,
there's nothing that prohibits that in North Dakota. But like Logan said, and kind of to re-articulate Ron's point, that if that's something that is concerning, that other states have created laws on, that's something that we should, or the commission could come back to
that's
in the future.
Question that's better addressed through the rulemaking process rather than the advisory opinion process.
But the requester needs some kind of a response before we get to the rulemaking process.
Yes. So, yep. Ron, we analyzed the current law. We could not find anything that would prohibit it other than the bribery, those types of things. Their rule in the legislature, be aware of that, but there's no ethics rule or statute that's directly on point for that specific question.
Dave, this is Murray. Just two observations. One is because this Wrangler arrangement is with him as a dairyman, which is not a legislative matter. I mean, it seems like the arrangement is I wear these Wrangler jeans because I'm a dairyman and I'm moving around and doing things and they're comfortable. He can't wear the jeans in the house. So it doesn't relate. The second thing is I'm impressed that this legislator has recognized that there may be a potential conflict and impressed that he sought guidance on it.
I kind of came down on the side with Ron. I'm a little uneasy with this. I'm not saying it's not right, and I appreciate the work that Logan did in spelling it all out, but it just seems to me, without just from 1,000 feet, it just doesn't seem just right. That's just me, I guess.
I guess it would be more concerning if the person with the jeans on would be the governor or the attorney general, somebody with more spot in the spotlight than just and I don't want to degrade the Representative Holly, but rather than somebody that's just an ordinary legislator.
But it just seems like if you were a businessman, let's say in the state, and so you decided to give away whatever it was, I'll even say shirts to 10 legislators so that they would speak highly of you, and I don't know, I'm just struggling with this a little bit.
But Logan, isn't the distinction here that and isn't the distinction here that the it's the legislature is the Wrangler jeans is related to his dairy or his dairy profession. It has nothing to do with he happens so he has a side or his work, and that's why he has the Wranglers. It has nothing to do, or he simply happens to be a legislature at the same time. So that's why he's asking the question.
I think that's correct, Dave. Yeah, I think this question is a good example of the larger issue of how conflicts of interest work. Yes, you're a legislator, but you have your private business or what you do in your day job. And when you come to the legislature, as the commission knows and directs, it's all about disclosing and managing those conflicts of interest. So there's no appropriations bill for Wrangler, but there may be something in the future that they're directly impacted by legislation, a bill of some sort. So just keeping that in mind, which we run through in the advisory opinion, that that if you sign this brand partnership, you might have a conflict when you're a legislator serving, and if there's legislation that could or would ever impact Wrangler, you might have to disclose you have this brand partnership. I think that even if there's local companies, it's the same analysis there. If they have grants or otherwise, and you have a contract with them to do business for them in the form of marketing, you will need to disclose that conflict regardless. Now, on the front side, if you're trying to leverage your position to get brand partnerships and saying, yeah, I promote myself, I'm a legislator, or I'm another public official, I have all these followers because I'm a legislator or a public official, you should sign a marketing deal with me so we can use those followers. That's a different analysis. Mm-hmm. And it may be something the commission may want to consider putting parameters on in the rulemaking process.
Like other states have done.
We might want to consider, but in this case, that doesn't apply. In the example here, based on the advisory opinion request.
Correct.
So to me, this is like someone. This is their job, but they happen to be a legislator. So they're just asking the question: is there a potential for conflict? And Logan went through the analysis, and it's allowable, except just recognize that they could, if the legislature has something related to Wrangler and legislation, then this legislator would have to declare a conflict of interest. It's like, be aware of that, correct?
Correct. Yeah. And that the legislature itself has a rule that you should not be leveraging your position to sign these deals.
Right.
But so if it's completely related to your work, in this context, a dairy farmer, yes, that is fine.
Just if it's related to your work.
If it's related to your work outside the legislature, outside being a public official, that's fine. Just keep in mind that it may present conflicts in the future.
Right. Any other thoughts from the commission? Okay, well, Anyone has any further questions? Great presentation again, Logan.
Thank you. I want to thank Patrick too for his work. He worked hard on these advisory opinions as well, so he deserves some recognition for his good work too.
Okay, well, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that. Because the work you guys do is very thorough, and I like how it builds up to the conclusion at the end. For me, this one is a distinction between an item that is involved in their line of work separate from the legislature. That's for me what it boils down to.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, any further discussion?
Not from me.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve the draft language and issue an advisory opinion 24-03 to the requester for the publication on the commission's website.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, we have a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, then Alicia, please call the roll.
Dave Anderson,
Aye.
Ward Kozer,
Aye.
Murray Sagsveen,
aye.
Cynthia Lindquist,
Aye.
Ron Goodman.
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, that appears to be the last item of business. So then we are ready to adjourn. Am I correct?
Correct.
Yep.
Okay. Then we stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate your help and thanks for your work.
Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you, Dave. You too.
Thanks, everybody.